I call this Caddo Parish January the 3rd, 3:30 meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mr. Hopkins.
Dominic, Johnson, Jackson, Lynn, Bowman,
Present.
Gage Watts, Middleton, Atkins, Chavez, Smith. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Everybody, we will have the invocation by Commissioner Gerald Bowman, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Doug Dominic. Everyone, please stand.
Everyone, please bow your heads. Father God, once again, we just thank you for this day. Thank you and ask you for forgiveness of sins. Father God, I ask you just allow us to remind ourselves of our purpose and help us again to be purposeful for the citizens. God, help us again, as always, that even if we can't agree, help us to disagree amicably, Lord, and help us to also go forth knowing that we've done our best under your guidance. These are the blessings we entrust in your Son, Jesus' name, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
I'll face the flag and repeat after me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh boy.
Are there any agenda additions?
We got Brandon down here today.
Seeing no agenda additions, we'll move on to citizens' comments. Any citizens that would like to speak to the commission and to the public on any issue, please fill out a card and hand it to Mr. Hopkins. Right now, I only have one card, and please come to the microphone and state your name and address. Mary Alice Roundtree.
Hi, I'm Mary Alice Roundtree with the Caddo Council on Aging, and we're located at 1700 Buckner Suite, Suite 240. Caddo Council on Aging. I'm just delighted to let me come in front of you today, and Happy New Year's to each and every one of you. I'm here to ask for a funding request. Recently, we had a decrease in our funding, and I'm just here. Y'all all knew that I'd be showing up here today because seniors are so important in our community. And you know, the thing about seniors, I think you've heard me say so many times, they haven't done anything wrong in our community. They're the silent majority. They're a big silent group of people, and they've done just one thing that's happened to them. They've grown old. They have no other means of increasing their support. Social Security has absolutely stayed the same. There's been no increase in Social Security, and they need our help. Right now, the Meals on Wheels for Caddo Council on Aging is not one of our main programs, but it's really probably the most important program we have. Right now, we're knocking on the doors of 1,300 seniors. Every single day, we're knocking at that door. Monday through Thursday, we deliver 2 meals on Thursday. Without us knocking on their doors, where would our seniors be? These are isolated, homebound people, and they need their meals, especially during this bad weather. When we start having bad weather, this is when it really is so special to me. We're the people that have found the seniors on the floor. Last Christmas, we found someone on the floor. She would have been on the floor 3 days had our meal driver not been there to discover her before the holidays. So I do ask you to consider our funding request and put us back. If we can keep it about that $1,200 or $1,300 level, 13-person level, then we don't have the huge waiting list. As soon as we suffer cuts, and this would be a cut to our meal program, that waiting list just goes right up, just escalates all the time. And you know, when people call us and they said they need the meal, they don't need the meal 6 months from now. They don't need the meal a year from now. They might not be there a year from now. They need us now. And so I do hope that you'll consider restoring our funding. Thank you so much. All of you do have a pass out, and I did kind of a breakdown by district of how many seniors are in each one of your district and what the economic impact is in each one of your district. I also gave you an annual report that you can look at right now. If you have any questions, and you'll probably see on one of the pages, there's a little chart of all of our funding. And half of our funding comes from the Older American Act. That is the only stable funding that we have. All of our other funding is very flexible depending on who gives us the funding. The parish has been a steady funding for us the last couple years, and I cannot tell you how important that is. 20 years ago, when I came back to the Caddo Council on Aging, we only depended on money from the Older American Act. And that's where you see half of it. We were serving 600 seniors, and there was approximately about 800 people on the waiting list. People would wait for years to get the meal. And that's when we started reaching out, and my time is up. I see the stopper right there. And that's when we started fundraising to get additional money. So please consider restoring our funding.
Second. All right, Chief. Thank you. They moved to extend it, but thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor House Manager. I have no further cards.
I have none.
And so
Next we move to reports, administration report.
President, good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, Dr. Wilson.
I think the last time Commissioner Lee and I briefed the flood issue that we went to a meeting that was conducted by Chef Prater. A lot of commissioners had questions, so we thought it'd be a good idea to bring those gentlemen before you all to kind of give you an explanation of what's going on. Now, at this time, I'd like to have our illustrious Chef Prater come forward and kind of talk to us a little bit about flood. And we have Mr. Ali Stauffer and Richard Bartali here, as well as guests today, to kind of give you an update on the Red River situation and flooding.
Good afternoon, and I think I look pretty good in my tie coat. I don't know what y'all think about it, but anyway, I wanted to come and talk to y'all for just a few minutes, and I got both hats on. I got the sheriff's hat on, and I got the Homeland Security director's hat on, and as y'all know, I'm that because of the appointment from y'all. So really I work in one respect for the same cause that y'all do in respect to the Homeland Security. But anyway, enough of that. What I wanted to talk to you about for just a brief moment is the same thing that we had the meeting about recently, and it's to kind of ring the bell or sound the alarm about the flooding situation in Caddo and Bossier parishes in this section of North Louisiana. People are under the misconception that was a 100-year flood that we had. Times have changed, the river's changed, it was not a 100-year flood. It's going to be more and more floods like that. Every day there's more and more sand and silt deposited in the river. The Corps of Engineers' own study said that there was going to be about, I'll do it in the ways that we can understand as far as tonnage. There's over 200,000 large dump trucks of sand a year deposited in pool number 5. 200,000 large dump trucks. Getting it out is a major problem. Hauling it would be a major problem. And where to put it's a major problem. So what I wanted to do is to tell you that we have a serious problem, and the people that almost flooded, I'm afraid, are going to flood. I'm thinking, I'm knowing that government needs to be more proactive. The parish and the city and the state needs to do more things. If we almost lost the 70th Street wall along the Parkway, then we are going to lose it if we don't do something with it. And we could go all the way across the parish like that. And it also backs up into the 12-mile bayou area, the MLK, and all across up, all the way up to Caddo Lake. We're going to continue to have those type floods. We have a study that you keep hearing about that the Corps of Engineers has asked for $1.5 million from Congress. They were funded for $225,000 and got a partial amount of the study. But the study is not going to come up and tell us what the solutions are. The study is just going to tell us how bad it is. And it is bad. We've had a tremendous amount of silt and sedimentation in the river, and we've had urbanization, which means that the walls and the Parkway and the Bossier and Shreveport walls of the downtown area, everything has changed the flow of the river. There's nowhere to go, so it's going to go up. And so I thought I would have, or I think it would do you well to hear the next two gentlemen because they are the experts in the field. I'm just the one sounding the cry and telling you that if you lived in the Havens and you almost flooded, that you can't say it's never going to happen again. Or you can't say our efforts were successful the last time. We as government, we as leaders have to come up with some plans to do something. And I don't have those plans. but I do have the responsibility of telling you that we do have a problem. And having said that, I'll introduce Rich Brontoli, who is the Executive Director of the Red River Valley Association, and he's got some knowledge, and we'll share that with you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the Commission. I am Rich Brontoli, Executive Director of the Red River Valley Association, and to give you an update of the flooding we've had in the last 2 years. First I want to explain is there's really two types of flood, the I-30 flood and an I-20 flood. I-30 flood is when we get massive rains up in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas. It all funnels down to the Red River to Shreveport. That's what we had in 2015. 2016, we had a flood, but we had massive rains over Caddo, Bossier parishes. So what you have there is you have a backwater flooding of all the bayous. And if the Red River's high, it's less time for evacuation of the water. If the Red River is low, the water can evacuate from tributaries and the backwaters. So the first thing is there are two different types of floods. And what we're discussing is the one in 2015 when it all comes from the north and the main stem Red River floods. Our concern was when you compare what we had in 2015 to 1990, we had less water, actually less volume of water passing Shreveport than 1990, but we had higher crests. So that's what really what was disturbing. I will also note that from 1990 to 2015, the river never got higher than flood stage 30 feet. That was the first time since 1990 that it had gone above flood stage. So not only are we concerned with the forecast being off, they were raising what the crest would be a foot every day. You can't flood fight for something like that. So we formed a committee, a technical committee that comprises of Caddo, Bossier levees, Caddo, Bossier parishes, City of Shreveport, Bossier City, the Port, Red River Watershed Institute, the Red River Waterway Commission. I'm the chair as the Red River Valley Association, and we include the Homeland Security because they're the ones who are going to have to actually fight and work with the flood fight and work with the citizens. So we have both Caddo and Bossier Homeland Security involved. Now the purpose of the committee is to coordinate with the federal agencies that are the Corps of Engineers, Vicksburg District, FEMA, National Weather Service, and USGS. USGS basically monitors and controls all the gauges. Now there are two main issues, and the Sheriff Prater mentioned both of them. One is siltation. We know that since the navigation project, there were a lot of dikes put in the river. It's not necessarily the dam, lock and dam structure, but a lot of dikes are put in between here and Lock and Dam 5. And those dikes that go out in the river are meant to channel the water and keep the channel 9 foot deep, but they silt in behind them. So we've had a lot of siltation behind the dikes and a lot of growth, trees and vegetation, and that also takes up flood storage. So siltation is an issue, and we know that a part of the problem was that. The second issue is urbanization. There's been a lot of urbanization between the levees. You got to look from the Caddo to the Bossier levee. At one point, 30 years ago, the river could span out levee to levee. If you can't span out, the water could, like the Sheriff said, it can only go up. So we need to look at how much urbanization has taken place since 1990 and what impact it has. So the Corps of Engineers and FEMA met with our committee and told us they can't do anything. They can't do new base flood elevations or anything until they have the sediment survey of what sediments is in the river, hydraulic model, what's the change, how's the river changed, and a LIDAR, which is a photo. Basically it does elevations. They fly the river from levee to levee and they know the elevations. They take all this and they'll compare it to the 1990 documents they have, and we'll know the changes, and then we can get an idea what is really the changes. Is it siltation? Is it urbanization? What's changed that's caused our problem? So the Corps said they needed $1.5 million to do all this work, all the surveys and the modeling and the studying, but they only got $250,000 last year. This year, the continuing resolution that just passed, there is emergency supplemental funds specific for the Corps of Engineers for flood disaster issues. We have submitted, and we know that it's gone forward to headquarters. It's up in Washington, D.C., and our congressional folks have submitted that they get the rest of the money, $1.25 million, to finish all they need this year, and we'll have a final results by the end of the year. So they just got the money, the Corps got a lump sum, and they will determine nationally how that money is distributed. So we're waiting, and we hope by the end of this month that we'll have that money, because the key about the LiDAR is you have to fly it when there's no leaves on the tree, because it's a radar, it's some sort of a sensing device, and if you have leaves on the trees, you don't get an accurate elevation of the land. So now is the time to do it over the next 2 to 3 months. The Corps has told us if they get the money, they have a contractor ready to fly the river and do it. So we're really going to be pushing over the next couple of weeks that we get the funding, that the Corps gets the funding. I cannot stress enough how important collecting and analyzing this data is before making any major recommendations to our community leaders. We need to analyze the pros and cons of all the options we have. And the options could be, how do you operate the lock and dam? How do you get rid of the silt? How do you control it better? How do you control reservoirs? What do you do? But we need to look at the data. We need to do benefit cost ratio for each option. What's the benefit to the cost of doing each option in order to make a responsible recommendation. So that is what our committee is dedicated to do. The other thing that this data that we get from the Corps that's critical is will give us a baseline. We really don't have a good baseline. Back in 1990, it was all a lot of stuff done by hand and manual surveying. Now we're going to have an excellent baseline so that every 5 years we can come in and do another analysis, another survey from I-220 bridge to Lock and Dam 5, which is not very much, and say what's changed in 5 years, what's changed in 10 years. National Weather Service, everybody can get together and reevaluate what's the critical issues that we need to be aware of for the next flooding. So our committee is dedicated not to forget. A lot of times you get a flood, 2 years later you're in a drought and nobody cares till the next flood. We will not let up on it till we get what we need. So that's what I had. Ali had some items, unless you wanted to ask questions at the end of all of us.
I think there's some names on the board, but I'll let Mr. Mustafa speak, and then the questions will be best addressed to whoever wants to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Don't go far.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year to everyone.
Thanks to know.
As Mr. Brantoli mentioned, I mean, there's no question we had a flood that happened in here. And the bottom line is we need to be proactive. And we determined based on, as soon as the flood happened, the Red River, we determined this is going to be a different flood than what we experienced in the past. In our lifetime, in 1990, the closest flood to this flood was what happened in May 1990. But suddenly we realized this flood is going to be bigger and worse. So we determined, as most of you know, I'm the administrator for the levee board. So what we do, our job is in the levee district for Caddo Parish, we provide flood protection mostly for East Caddo Parish, along the Red River, Wilma Bayou, and Bayou Pierre, south of the city of Shreveport. So as soon as we realized the Red River is cresting and it's getting out of hand and it's swelling up and it's going to cause some damage to a lot of properties and could cause loss in lives, we determined we need to be proactive. We quickly initiated our emergency plan, and on top of that, when we found out it's going to be major disaster, we said, this is unusual flood. So we hired quickly a surveyor, and we went in there all the way from the Arkansas line, which we control, all the way to Lock and Dam, which is in Caddo Parish, and to start surveying. We said we need to see how high the water is going to get from the Red River and what kind of impact it's causing. So we can, after the flood, we don't sit down and just say, well, it's over, and wash our hands and sit down and watch. We need to be proactive, so we need to use this data, which we surveyed for mitigating and for future flood protection. So we determined in the city of Shreveport, between Florida Lucas and I-220, this flood, it was less amount of water in the Red River when you compare it to 1990 flood. In 1990, there was 230,000 cubic feet per second volume of water flowing into the Red River. In 2015, there was only 206. So it was 24,000 cubic feet per second less. However, the flood elevations in this area I just mentioned between Florida Lucas and I-220, which is basically the city of Shreveport limits, it was 3 to 4.5 feet higher than it was in 1990. So less volume of water in the river caused higher flooding. So that tells us there is some dynamic change in the Red River and the way it's behaving in these areas. When you compare it to the south of the lock and dam, it behaved like similar to what it did in 1990. So it was something major, something severe, and we determined we need to assess our levees, because our levees provide flood protection for over 200,000 acres in Caddo Parish of land and over 35,000 population, 30,000 people protected by these levees. And of course, the port down in South Caddo Parish is protected by the levee system. If it wasn't for the levee system, you won't have a port. So we start looking at our levee. We quickly surveyed the levees to determine if there is any chance, if we have a similar flood or bigger flood, that can cause either breach in the levee or cause overtopping the levees. And we found one area, and it was at the port, about a mile long. It came within 12 to 18 inches of overtopping the levee in there, just north of Bentler Steel, which they invested just recently millions of dollars in there. So we're already working a plan. We're not sitting watching. We're already working a plan to go in there now while we're waiting for the next flood. Hopefully it will give us enough time to go build that levee and raise it about 2 to 3 feet to make sure we provide flood protection for the river. And the same thing needs to happen all over the city and in Caddo Parish. But in the city, the only area that was impacted or severely impacted was along 12 Mile Bayou, because 12 Mile Bayou and the Red River are connected at the hip, and any flooding in the river impacts 12 Mile Bayou. As a matter of fact, 12 Mile Bayou, the same thing between right Samstown, where it hooks up to Red River all the way to 220, it was 3.5 feet higher than it was in 1990 because of backwater flooding from the Red River. That's why the areas in MLK, McCain Creek, all that area around I-220 and Russell Road flooded because of that backwater. So what we determined, two things needs to happen. One of them, you look at, see any structural improvements you can do to mitigate the flooding and make sure future floods will not be causing similar problems to what we had. The other thing, the government bodies in both city and Caddo need to step up to the plate and implement certain legislation to make sure what we build from now on, if we have a similar flood or flood that's worse than this, it's protected, and it's not, we're not putting people in risk, in harm's way, and the risk of flooding in the future. I remember in 1991, in my previous life, I used to work for the city of Shreveport. We had on April 12, we have a very major flood in the city of Shreveport. It was strictly in the city, and it was not in the Red River. It was localized rain, and it caused flooding in about 5 areas. It caused flooding in Moortown area, Summer Grove area, Broadmoor area, and MLK area, and there's one more in Brushy Bayou area right in there in Southern Hills. We have significant flooding all over the city. I remember I just started working for the city in July 1990, and this happened in April, just only like 6-7 months later. Mrs. Beard, Mayor Hazel Beard was the mayor, and Tom Dark was my boss back then. She talked to Tom Dark, and he came to me, he said, we need to do something. Well, we need to find out what happened, what can we do to mitigate this flood, what can we do to reduce flooding in these areas if we have a similar flood, because the flood's going to happen. There's no way you can prevent it. When it rains, Mother Nature is going to take its course and cause whatever it needs to cause. So we need to be, so I told him, okay, we can sit down and look at all these areas. He said, we working on the budget, trying to see if we can find some money, scramble some money, whatever we have, and you go in there, go to work, and find out what needs to be done. We hired an engineering company out of Baton Rouge. They are specialized in water resources to help identify some of these areas. With me working with them, we identify certain things we can do, projects improvements-wise, to reduce similar flooding in the future. And in other areas, we determined there's not a whole lot we can do. What we did, we started the acquisition of flood-prone properties. In Moortown area, we find out all the area is so flat, all the ditches in there are already improved, paved and all that. We couldn't do a whole lot. So what we did, we went in there and we bought over 140 homes in Moortown area and demolished them. And that's how you get rid of the hazard. We moved people to other areas. In other areas in Broadmoor, we found out, okay, there's some ditches we need to improve. We applied to grants through the state wildfire control program. We did a lot of improvements in By Pier and Ockley Ditch. At the same time, we said we need to protect these improvements. We're improving these ditches, and the only reason these ditches are getting out of the banks and the flooding nowadays is because of development, continuous development without proper control. So what we did, we came to the council and we told them we need to have some mitigation in here. So what we did, we put stringent detention requirements. So every time there's a development, if you go all the new areas in East Shreveport that develop behind Lowe's, there's about a 5-acre area in there, they build a detention pond. You go behind Sam's, behind Target, behind all these developments that took place in the last 20 years in Shreveport, they were required to mitigate any increase in runoff. And that's how you control flooding. You just don't do the improvements, because the improvement, you improve a ditch, in 20 years you'll be in the same boat you was when you flooded before if you don't do something to reduce that. So what I ask this public body in here to be proactive and look at it with an open mind and determine what needs to be done to make sure this flood, if it happens again, the damage will be kept to minimum and we don't have any loss of lives in Caddo Parish.
Thank you. There are some people on the board. Is that everything, Mr. Mustafa?
That's everything I have.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Ollie. My question is for Rick, wherever you went. There you are. I think we all intuitively understand that the river is silting up, and when the river silts up, you lose capacity, and that leads to flooding, even if you have the same amount of water. So you pointed out that in order to get money to help remedy these situations, or federal dollars to help remedy these situations, we need to do the study. And that's a $1.5 million study, and you've got $250,000, so you're 1.25 short. And there's some Corps of Engineer dollars allocated in Washington to this type of study, and we need to get our fair share of that. So all that to say, what is your committee doing to interact with Washington, with our delegation, to ensure that we do get our, are they informed, are they aware, are they working and on a follow-up? Can other citizens help follow up with them? Is that necessary, or are you all already?
Yeah, what I did as soon as the CR was passed in December is I sent to all committee members, all the parishes, cities, levy boards, and everybody, a draft letter to send to the delegation. And most everybody, the cities have done that. And so we have contacted our delegation. They've told us they have put in the request, and the Waterway Commission and I have directly communicated with headquarters, Corps of Engineers, and given them it, and they've told us they have it. It's just an issue now of them giving it to us. And so what we will do is follow up this week and next week to see what's being done to make sure we're high on the priority.
It's fully informed and they're on top of it.
Yes, I feel they are totally informed. We've got feedback.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Dominic.
Rich, you might want to stay. First of all, I'd like to thank the sheriff and Rich and Mustafa. I'd like to thank y'all for coming here today for your presentation to all of us, and to everyone that's out there. I think this is an eye-opening experience that the media needs to learn and understand, and we all need to understand that this is an extremely, extremely important matter for us in the city of Shreveport and Caddo Parish. We're sitting here today on January 3rd, and a few months from now we could be sitting here talking to the Red Cross and everybody else that we've had to because of issues that may happen. Appreciate you, number one, for coming here. Several questions I have is, I guess, to follow up on Mr. Atkins' question. It seems like y'all are doing everything that you can to get this funding. My question is, Is there anything else that the parish, Caddo Parish, can do to help expedite the funding? Do we need to send a resolution? Have we already done that? Do we need to get Dr. Wilson to send another letter? Or what can we do to send something to Washington to hopefully help this out?
I know Tim's worked on a letter, I've seen it, and I think that's
All right,
pretty adequate.
I'll stop you. Dr. Wilson, I'd ask that, from now until Thursday, if you can maybe give us a brief update Thursday for some type of resolution that we need to pass to urge any funding on this. Let's get it done, even if we have to make a special edition. I think that would be something to do, a special edition to our meeting Thursday if we had to. The next question, Rich, I had, you were talking about the dikes and the silt. Whose responsibility is that? Who's it? Is that the Caddo Parish? Is it the levee board? Is it y'all? Is it the court? Whose responsibility ultimately is that?
I'm sorry, responsibility to do what?
The silting. The silting, one of the things that I picked up was it seemed like a lot of the issue was not so much the dams, but they're the dikes that are put out there to make sure you have I think you said the 9 foot, is that what it was?
To maintain a 9-foot channel, right.
But a lot of it has to do with the dikes being silted in behind the dikes, the vegetation and things like that. Who's ultimately responsible for that? What government agency is responsible for that?
That was a Corps of Engineer project. The navigation project is 100% federal. The lock and dams, the channel. The Corps is only responsible to dredge the channel, to keep a 200-foot wide, 9-foot channel. They do not have any provisions or maintenance behind the dikes. That's technically built into the project. So what this study will do, we'll look at how much is actually silted in, how much flood storage was lost. Was that calculated in the original project formulation? That's something we need to know. Did they know over time that this would happen? We'll also look at urbanization. I mean, that is an issue when you scrunch the river down and don't let it spread out, it's got to go up. So we're going to look at that too. So it's a combination of things.
What about, once this study's done, if it does say, silting needs to be removed, I mean, is that something the Corps is going to have to remove? Will they remove it? I mean...
That's something we'll have to address when the time comes, whether it's the Corps, the federal government, since they're the ones, it was their project, or is it a cost share issue? That's all something that we would have to look at once they have all the data. They've determined that is how much of the problem is caused by the silting.
Dr. Wilson, as far as y'all think we're going to get it by the end of the month? Is that what we're saying? Or?
We're supposed to know in the next, I would hope, 2 to 3 weeks, how the Corps, the Corps got a lump sum for the nation. Right. Congress can't do earmarks. The Congress can't say put $1.25 million to the Red River like they used to. It's all, the administration has to decide. So Congress just gave them a lump sum of money and said distribute this, and hopefully they give it to where Congress wants it.
It would seem like we could do a resolution from us and the city of Shreveport and even the Caddo Parish Levy Board, if possible, to do some joint requesting of these funds. I'm going to leave that up to you, Dr. Wilson, to come up with an idea on that. And Mr. Mustafa, you had one thing.
Before you leave me, let me just say one thing. We also gave all this information to Senator Kennedy and Representative Johnson. So even though they just got sworn in today, they've had this information in December, so they're aware of our situation too.
Is there any, I know we have some people out here I know we have the owner of Champion Lake out here, and, just people in general that have a concern or an issue. Is there a certain place that they need to go or to find out more about what's going on?
I'll leave that up to Ollie.
Champion Lake is controlled
and
by...
I wasn't asking, I was just saying that, there are people out here in this audience that are sitting here trying to learn today. Is there a certain place that they can go to if they want to know more or follow up? For example, your committee meeting, when do y'all meet if they wanted to come to your committee meeting or know something else that was going on?
Well, the committee meeting is a closed-door meeting, only for the committee members. But we are keeping the public informed. Rich, the committee usually puts a news release. Anytime we get information, something we want to share with the public, we put the news release with the times and all that. The sheriff's office helps us out with the distribution. We give it to the sheriff's office and they distribute it.
I know we have some legislation, Dr. Wilson, before us today concerning the fact that raising the level or
Yes,
something
sir.
to that effect.
It's
Was
on
there-
the agenda.
Yeah. Is there any other specific legislation that you think that the parish or the city of Shreveport need to look at adopting? You said something.
Yeah, this is the most important because the
The one
parish.
that we have on our agenda today?
Yes,
is
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
sir. The Bossier, we've been working with Bossier Parish and Bossier City, and they already implemented similar legislation to control developments in areas not protected by the levee system.
Okay.
So it's similar to what they did already across the river.
Again, thank y'all for being here and telling us and informing us so much better. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
I think you have some more. Go ahead.
I was just going to tell you that if you will go to the Red River Valley Association website, and probably the Caddo Parish Commission and the Sheriff's website, but it's easiest to go there, and you will look on the right-hand side, and it'll give you Caddo, Bossier, Flood Control Committee, is that what we call it? And it's got 65 pages. It's the PowerPoint that we did that Mr. Lynn was at and
Right.
someone else. And the staff maybe could run that off for each of y'all. I'm telling you, it's very informative. And it's simple, and it's it's simple to understand, and it's graphs and pictures and shows exactly what we're up against. You ask, could you do anything as a commission? One thing that you can do is to help us educate the public and educate your employees that this is a problem. I'm not standing here saying that I'm not the chicken whatever, saying the sky's falling, okay? I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm saying that we do have a serious problem. This study is not going to tell us how to solve that problem. At best, the study is going to tell us a historical data where we can mark a point in time and say the river is this bad right now. In 5 or 10 years, we can say, okay, the river has gotten this much worse. So don't think that the study, don't make sure the study's funded and then forget about it. When you give speeches around the community, when you talk to your employees, educate the public that this is a problem and it's going to get worse. It's getting worse every day. And tell your employees to be having tabletop exercises about what are we going to do the next flood when it's worse. How are we going to handle this? In other words, be prepared to do that because it is something serious. You can't just stop at the end of this meeting, say, okay, we'll think about that some other time. We have to get some things in motion. And finally, just to understand, it's real simple. Less water is causing higher levels. Less water is causing higher levels. In 1990, a certain amount of water came up to the swimming pool where I used to live. In 2015, less water put 2 foot of water in my house. Okay, if it's that simple, and that's going to happen all over, and it's happening all over. So the people on Wells Island Road that we helped to build houses back and repair their trailers and have worked so hard at to try to get their trailers back just like they were at the same level, they need to understand that it's going to happen again. And people need to be doing things proactively with that understanding. I hate to say it, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we got to we have an obligation as leaders in this community to tell the public through the media and through meetings and through our employees.
Is there anything else, Commissioner
I
Dominic?
think that's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominic. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. A couple things I want to kind of hit up on. I know Commissioner Dominic talked about sending a letter, but I think there needs to be some face-to-face talks instead of a letter sent to the U.S. delegation. I think there needs to be a committee of some commissioners, administrator, who goes to Washington, D.C. and talk to those congressmen about the importance of this issue. Also, to talk to the Corps of Engineers and have a meeting with them about the importance of this issue. As we all know, the one who makes the most noise gets the most attention. So if we don't do nothing but send a letter, that's not really getting their attention. we need to have face-to-face conversation with them about the importance of this. Another issue we got is Cross Bayou, which is one of the waters that's a contributory into 12 Mile Bayou. When you look at Cross Bayou, I mean, right now it's low, so you can look down and see how it is. There's a lot of dead trees, vegetation, tires, furniture that's in there. And as that water comes up, that holds that water back. Right now, if you look at Cross Bayou, it's probably no wider than a ditch at the very bottom. And then once it comes out of that ditch, it just runs and spreads between Blanchard Road and Erie Huckabee. And then once there's an outlet in there that makes it cross over into the Russell Road area. And once it crosses into Russell Road area, it's just flat land, so that water just runs and runs and runs. So that's an issue that needs to be taken care of too. And I don't know if that's the Corps of Engineers or would that be the city that would be responsible for cleaning that. But that's one of the main problems we have. And 2015, we were lucky because that was we want to call the I-30 rain that brought the backwater down through there. And then in 2016, we had the I-20 rain. But what's to say in 2017, we had the I-20, I-30 rain. And so now the water from the north meets the water from the south. And so there's nowhere for that water to go. In 2016, my property was impacted. Water came within 8 feet of my property, my house, and I'm standing in the driveway looking at fish swim in the yard. So and that was the I-20 rain. So if you get both of them together, you're gonna lose a lot of property, and there's gonna be a lot of destruction of homes. The Cross Lake is another issue. I know we're saying that Red River has a lot of silt that's built up in the bottom of it, but also Cross Lake has the same amount because it's not holding the same amount of water it used to hold many years ago. So basically, there has to be some kind of protocol established with the city, and that was one of the reasons why so much property got flooded in 2016 around Cross Lake, is because you talked about a 10-inch rainfall, and they was kind of slow about draining the water out of the lake. They did drain some water. According to my neighbor, it was about 8 inches from the back of their property, and then the water started coming back up. And to wake up early in one morning, or to be at home at night and see the water way off, and then come in the next morning, you wake up and the water is right at pretty much at your doorstep, it's shocking. And I think nobody really wants to hear about that. And even to be on the news is saying that there's a rescue in your neighborhood, and the water is that high, and you get stuck in your neighborhood for 2.5 days, can be a life-changing experience. So Red River is a very important deal we need to talk about, but we also need to address the contributory waters that go into the Red as well as Cross Lake, because they all tie in together, and as water starts to back up, it has no boundaries. I know that in 16, I went across the bridge on Old Blanchard Road, and the water was at the bottom of that bridge going across. And then on the 15, the water was backing up to the dam on Cross Lake. So you can see the water on one side, and then see how the lake was lower on the other side, and everybody just swore up and down that they was letting water out of Cross Lake, and they wasn't. But we got to have some kind of mechanism to try to get this water moving out of this area and then into another area. Another option would be to put another dam north of Caddo Parish, because there was no problems in between all the lock and dams. And with it free flowing to the first lock and dam, which is number 5, and then all the silt is building up in the river up into that first lock and dam, then that's where the real issue comes in at. And I said in all the meetings in 2015 and most of all of the meetings in 2016. So I kind of followed everything from the very beginning because I was concerned about it, because typically it was hitting District 2, District 3, and District 4 with the Red River. And for homeowners and property owners to sit there, and whenever we have those heavy rains like that, have to pray and wonder if their house is gonna flood, you know, nobody wants to live like that. Another contributing factor we had was the construction of I-49. I actually took a picture where they had built a earthen dam to keep the water out of the construction zone, which then forced the water to come back into the community. Sent those pictures to the state senators and the representatives to show them that, hey, you know, your Department of Transportation has helped flooding this area. And those guys from DOT at the time told them there's no way that we were doing that. Well, I showed them a concrete truck sitting on a dirt pad, and it's 2 foot of water on the other side of it. I said, tell them to break the dam, see what happens. They broke the dam, and it flooded. They tried to flood it on one side. Well, wasn't no water on that side, so it's not going to flood. Break it on this side, it flooded. So there's a lot of new things that we have to try to incorporate, get people moving off some. Right now, it's been going on 2 years, and nothing has happened. There's nothing different. There's more silt that's been built up in the Red River. There's more trash that's been dumped in the Cross Bayou. And so, 2017, we don't know what's going to happen. And we're finna get into the rain season. So, we need to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Chavez.
Thanks, President. Is it Rich? Is that right? Rich?
Yes.
Frontelli.
Hey, Rick. I see our biggest concern right now is just funding. I mean, I get a lot of the solutions that have been offered, but on the funding, we have a lack of it, and we're sitting at $250,000 for the pictures of the silt topography that we're trying to obtain. How are we going about it? Is it the most cost effective? Are we using aviation mapping or using satellite-derived bathymetry to get those pictures that we're trying to obtain?
They're doing a number of things. They've actually put boats in the water that survey the bottom of the river when the river's at pool stage like it is now, or when it's at higher stage. And then they'll do LIDAR, which is airplane, which would be levee to levee, and do a elevation of the land and the structures between the levees. So there's basically 3 types of surveys they're doing.
Do they have to pull aerial permits to run the airplanes?
They have all that done because the Corps has contracts. They're doing that sort of thing all the time across the country.
I just wonder if we can think outside the box and maybe partner with a company that does satellite mapping, that does this for a living, that could do it at the cost that we have. If we're sitting at $250,000 and we could offer them that to give us the data that we need, as opposed to paying boat drivers and airplane drivers and pulling permits, I think it'd be a lot more feasible. And that's our problem at this point. Can we look at something like that?
Our committee has looked at funding it ourselves, but we wanted to wait to see if the Corps would get the money this next couple of weeks, because then that takes care of it. It'll be done. But the other issue is, just like the federal government, we may do it, and then if we turn it in, they may say, well, this company, we don't know who they are, and they won't accept it. So there's a lot of things we need to do, but we have looked at partnering with the Corps, if they don't get the funding, to use a company they would accept, so that they could take that data and use it officially. So we have looked at that as a committee. We've looked at the cost and how far, because the Corps is going to do it from Lock and Dam 1 all the way through the end of Arkansas to look at what the changes. You know, maybe we only want to do a small section instead of that whole stretch. So we're looking at what options we have. But our first one is we should know by the end, in another 2-3 weeks, if they get the money or not.
You guys may know this may be a crazy question, but does the federal government have a satellite that can achieve hydrographic mapping?
I don't know that. I know that like I said, they were doing it by boats, and they've already made one run with boats on doing the mapping of the bottom of the river and that, but I don't know that they could do it by satellite. That I don't know. Well, it's a question we can ask.
I know it's available now. That technology is out there. I just obviously don't know. But I mean, we're American. The U.S. government. You would think that they would have that type of technology where we wouldn't have to pay them. They could just do it and say, hey, look, this is the Corps of Engineers. This is the technology that they have. I don't know if we've looked into that type of scenario.
We haven't, but we can.
Okay.
We
I
can.
would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick. That's all, President.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Bowman.
Commissioner Dominic already addressed my questions, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Mr. Brontelli and Mr. Mustafa and Sheriff Prater for the transparency that y'all have offered to the public in getting this information out. And thank you very much for pulling all of your team members, because we are all on the same team in doing everything that we can to solve this problem. Recently, I sent y'all an onslaught of questions, and I asked that if you would, whenever y'all can find the answers to those questions, if you would send them back to me as soon as you get them, I would greatly appreciate it. And then also, if you could add to that list of questions the original project formulation. If you could send me the original project formulation, I would greatly appreciate that. And y'all all gave scenarios, and this is one scenario I took from the meeting that we had a few weeks ago that really hit home, was that if we had had the rain or the water flow down the Red River last year that we had in 1990, the water level would have been 42 feet instead of 38 feet. And that's shocking and earth-shattering and catastrophic when you look at how far that would flow, not just the riverbanks, but in Anderson Island, where the water was coming up through the pipes, and all of the other neighborhoods that are further away from the riverfront than what you would expect. And I hope that in all these plans, that in recognizing that we're trying to figure out how bad the problem is, that y'all are working, and anything I can do to help, please ask, that we're working just as hard to figure out how to start getting some of the sand and the silt out of the bottom of the Red River as fast as possible, because we might not know how bad it is, and that's what we're looking for, but we know it's bad. And so we know the problem's there, and if anything that we can do to get started on curing that, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming to speak before the commission body today, and just know that if you're all looking for team members, that we're certainly going to toe our end of the road. Thank you. That's everybody on the board.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, Commissioner, then the only other item I have for you today is legislative priorities for 2017 that we passed out a worksheet. If you'll get us back to us, we appreciate it, so we can compile the list to get ready for this year's session. So we typically have a luncheon that we meet with the delegation and have more priorities with them. And certainly, we'd like to get that back as soon as possible. And more to come on update on Project Rail.
Thank you. The Red River flooding issue is at the top of my list. I think everybody's pretty much.
Right.
Does anybody, any questions, or anybody need to address Administrator Wilson? That's everything. Next item.
Next, we move to communiques and committee reports.
Vice President Jackson.
Yeah, Dr. Wilson, we briefly discussed a meeting for all of the nonprofits and NGOs. Are we still on track to do that? Have the letters gone out?
Yes.
Are they required to RSVP, or y'all just saying, come on?
We just invite them to come.
Okay.
Some of them, there are RSVPing to us.
Okay, so y'all know about how many we're dealing with. Okay, and we're gonna do the presentation form for...
Yeah, between Donna and I, we'll have something ready for the 12th.
Okay.
And that's going to be done here.
Here? Okay, appreciate it.
The 12th, January 12th at 5:30
Okay,
in the chamber.
appreciate it. That's it, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. I do not see anybody else on the board.
Also reminding we have selection of officers Thursday, January 5th. Move to President's report.
This is my second to last President's report, and with it, I want to say that with us losing Commissioner Epperson from this body, we have all lost a person who fought for what they believed in, and went tooth and nail and never gave up on an issue, even if it was lost behind. He would bring that issue back up again. And what I encourage all of us to do on this body, if we could adopt that attitude on the Red River, and all of us, pick up the phone and call the congressman and call our senators, and write our own letters and encourage our friends that have their ear to call them and write letters. The more phone calls they get, I mean, we have witnessed it here on this body when all of a sudden our emails blew up and our phone calls were every 5 seconds, that we said, okay, hold on a second, I got a lot of other stuff going on, but right now I need to focus on this because apparently this is on the front agenda for every single person. And so if we can take on Commissioner Epperson's attitude and aptitude and diligence on the Red River, I think that we can certainly overcome this potential for natural disaster in our area. That is the end of my President's report.
We have no old business. We move to new business. Authorize introduction of ordinance number 5660 of 2017. Amend sections 18.5, 18.8, and 1872 of the Code of Ordinances, Parish of Caddo, relative to flood damage prevention to amend minimum construction elevations, to add the Red River hazard area, and establish a minimum elevation.
So move for introduction.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Jackson, was seconded by, I heard it from over there, I didn't hear it, by Commissioner Bowman. You want to speak on that? You want to speak on your second? Commissioner Johnson.
I guess kind of witnessing some of this already in my neighborhood where a homeowner is building between two existing homes. And so initially they had the house pad up a certain elevation, and now they're raising it up even higher. And just looking at what I'm seeing, the elevation raised up high as it is, that when it rains, that runoff is going to go to those other houses that are sitting lower. So, I mean, with this move, it seems like if you close to a house that's just being built and it's at a higher elevation, that rainoff is going to come to you. So even if you didn't flood in the past, you might flood. So I just think we got to kind of make sure that we have some checks and balances in place on this new construction, especially between existing homes, so that the new homes don't flood the existing homes if we get like a 10-inch rain or 8-inch rain like that. And then maybe that falls upon when they do the designs and all the layouts and all that.
Plan.
Right.
Yes. We
Making
review all
sure they
those
got correct
documents.
drainage.
We'll make sure that no one gets flooded out because of some new construction going in.
Exactly, because right now that house pad is probably about 3.5 feet high.
Right.
So, I mean, it's high compared to the other houses and the elevation that's right beside them. That's all I have.
Thank you. Please vote. That moves to Thursday. Next item.
Authorize introduction of ordinance number 5661 of 2017, providing for the dissolution of Live Oak Multi-Faith Trust and providing for other matters in connection therewith.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dominic, second by Commissioner Atkins.
I think this,
you wanna speak on
yeah,
that?
just from reading this, I think it was a bond issue or something. This has been paid off. It's no longer necessary, and we just need to close this out and end this at this time. Is that correct, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir, it is.
Is that everything? Commissioner Atkins, you want to speak on your second?
I just might, I used to serve on the Live Oak board many years ago, and the group that was listed as the current members of this board were the same people that used to serve, not all of whom are still with us. So, and when Will Snyden took over Live Oak, as I understand it, this board went away and took the debt away as well. So I don't think there's a need for this any longer.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Johnson.
They answered my question, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Dr. Wilson. Is this the, so is this Live Oak, the nursing home? And if I read this correctly, the parish issued the bonds for it? Eric?
I'm not aware.
I don't think so. Attorney?
We'll get the information.
We'll find out. But I doubt
But
that.
it's an old deal that
But the parish, do y'all know if the parish issued the bonds or took on the debt?
we did not. I don't think we did.
So I don't
There's a
think.
lot
we-
of
We did not.
No.
Public trust,
in that case.
We didn't take
public
on
trust
the
issue.
debt.
No.
This is before all of our time, so we gotta do a little research.
Okay. Well, could y'all find out, because it says, the public trust was created pursuant to, I'm on the, 1, 2, 3, I'm on the third paragraph down, for the benefit of Parish of Caddo, President of Caddo Parish Police Jury on behalf of, so I don't, if y'all could find out, this is a two-reader, if I'm correct? So
Yes.
if y'all could find out, I'd just like to know if the parish, issued the debt or not, because if that's the case, if we didn't issue any debt, I'm trying to figure out why, what's our involvement?
We'll find out.
And if you have it, I would like a copy of the original bond formulation. If you find that, if you'll just send me that, please. Thank you. That's everybody. Please vote. That moves to Thursday. Next item.
Authorize introduction of ordinance number 5662 to authorize purchase of property located in section 22, township 19 north, range 15 west, Caddo Parish, Louisiana.
so moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dominic, second by Commissioner Johnson. Please vote. Excuse me, Commissioner
Oh, this is
Dominic, you
a study that's been done over, I don't know, last 4 or 5 years, that we needed another compactor site located in the northern part of the, well, actually the Blanchard area. The problem was finding a site suitable to place another compactor site. Spoke to Jimmy Whittington and Mr. Weaver. They're recommending that this site, I initially thought it was in your district, but they're telling me it's in mine, so.
but
you're-
so to mine.
Yeah, so you're okay with it. I think Commissioner Johnson's okay with it. It'll be a win-win situation for all of us, and I would ask that we move forward. We're paying the fair market value. That's because what we have to legally pay for it. Don't even know the exact value. Mr. Weaver can tell us.
Commissioner Johnson, do you want to speak on your second?
I support it.
Commissioner Atkins.
I'm supportive. I'm just curious how many acres we'll be acquiring.
5 acres? 5 acres.
7.8. 7.8. Okay, thank you.
That's everybody. Please vote.
It'll be coming out of the waste compactor site fund, obviously to pay for all this.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, we got plenty.
Yeah,
of
got plenty of money.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
That moves forward. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 1 of 2017 approving amended budget and proposed 2017 budget of North Louisiana Criminalistic Laboratory Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dominic, second by Commissioner Middleton. I see no one on the board. Please vote. That moves forward. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 2 proclaiming January as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month.
Moved by Commissioner Middleton, seconded by Commissioner Bowman. I see no one on the board. Please vote.
Well, you can have Laurie here first.
That moves forward. Next item.
You have Laurie here.
Authorize resolution number 3, a resolution urging and requesting Louisiana Legislature to rename all sections of I-49 within Caddo Parish boundaries to C.C. Antoine Freeway.
Move to adopt with a amendment that the parts of I-49 that's unnamed inside of Caddo Parish, instead of renaming the whole deal, it's only the parts that hasn't been named.
Like north?
Second.
Okay.
Motion was made by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts. Do you want to speak on your motion?
Not yet.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts, do you want to speak on your second?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, legal, is there a resolution attached to this, or?
I believe there was one originally, but the one with the amendment is not attached. I don't think that was a hard copy was issued. But basically what it is, it would just say to name all of the unnamed parts of I-49 that lie within Caddo Parish to CC Antoine. Because there are some parts of I-49 that have been named already by the legislature.
But can we get that in?
Yeah.
I'd like to see what, it's not attached on this here.
Right.
It will be attached with the amendments when it comes back, and it'll go out on tomorrow's agenda for you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominic.
Yeah, again, this kind of goes back to the same thing I've said before. This is up to the Louisiana legislature, so just hate stepping on their toes. So I'm not for this.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominic. Commissioner Cawthorn.
To Commissioner Johnson, you get a body, just some backdrop as to who is CC Antoine and significance of naming the highway after him.
Okay, CC Antoine was the 13th Lieutenant Governor of the state of Louisiana. He also was a state senator for Caddo Parish. Actually one of the first African-American state senators from Caddo Parish to serve. Basically born in New Orleans, but then moved to Shreveport. And as he lived in Shreveport, he became an entrepreneur, helped form other black businesses, helped get established. We actually have a CC Antoine Park that's on Milan. And so I think that with I-49, the route that it's taking, that it just will highlight that park and highlight all the other things that we're doing related to CC Antoine. When you look at some of the other major cities, they name certain freeways or interstates that come in through there. You look at Chicago, they got about 9 or 10 different names for different interstates that's running through the Chicago area. You look over in Dallas, you got on 635, you got the LBJ freeway. So Houston also has Sam Rayburn that's named after it. So I mean, there's many interstates that got different names, and I think that we need to try to have something that would draw people to wonder about when they come in through Caddo Parish, the name, and then tie that into tourism, and then offer them some reason to stop, spend some money before they leave out of Caddo Parish and move on to Arkansas or move to Texas or wherever they're going along the highways. So it's just a way to look at it. And then I noticed that a lot of the names that are on some of our existing roads are people who are current. I mean, you got the Terry Bradshaw Expressway, you got the Joe D. Wagner, all those people are current. Try to get something with some more historical tenure to it. And that way, you know, it leads people to, okay, who was that? Because, I mean, you got probably two generations that probably don't know who he was. So it kind of offers us to be able to teach who that time frame and that era of who he was and what he did for this community.
It is also correct there's a local festival held every year.
Yes, there's a CC Antoine celebration.
We have sponsored.
A couple days.
Yeah, we have sponsored that.
Which we do help sponsor that. So it kind of ties into all of that all together. And just trying to make it seem that we're progressive and not just sitting stagnant.
Right.
And we have to do this as part of the process. So it's not like we're telling them, if you don't request this, then it never will happen through the state. So you have to go in and put in a request. So that's why we're going this route. Other than, I mean, if we could do it on our own, I would have had the resolution for us to do for ourselves. But this is the process in which you have to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Johnson, are you good?
I'm good.
Awesome. Next item.
Please, gotta vote for it.
That moves forward. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 4, approving and authorizing Caddo Parish Fire District number 7 to issue, sell, and deliver in the name of the district.
So moved. Moved by Commissioner Dominic, second by Commissioner Cawthorn. See no one on the board, please vote. That moves forward. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 5, urging and requesting Honorable John Bell Edwards, and Louisiana Legislature to act to authorize and provide for the operation of autonomous vehicles in Louisiana.
Moved by the chair. Second by Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Johnson, or did you want to speak on that? Commissioner Johnson.
What kind of automobiles are these?
I was about to say.
Right now, what you have, the state of Pennsylvania has authorized autonomous vehicles, and they are doing a test kitchen with Volvo. And so Volvo has moved operations and manufacturing of automobiles to Pennsylvania and are using their autonomous vehicles. There are currently autonomous vehicles in our community right now. And so this would help spur development at the former GM plant, which is widely available to anybody that wanted to come in and take the rest of the facility. And also it brings us more so into the 21st century.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that nobody has a problem with that, too.
Going into the 21st century?
No, the question he's messing with me.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowman.
Pretty much answered the question. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hopper.
Yeah, it pretty much answers my question, but with the exception of, do we know that whether or not this is on the governor's radar screen, in his people, or this is going to help put it on the radar screen?
Hopefully it will put it on there. I do know that that every single state in the United States is looking at this issue right now, and when you factor in that over 90% of all automobile accidents are vehicular error, and I get to the point where my wife's car has all these little sensors every time I'm about to bump something. And then when I get into my pickup truck, it doesn't have anything. I have to remember, I'm like, okay, I'm in my truck, and I have to, like, crazy watch everything, where hers, it tells me I'm 25 feet from something. Anyway, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Atkins.
Well, as a general policy, I don't support telling Baton Rouge what to do, but in this case, it seems like a fairly harmless, generally, good for the community initiative, so I can support it without violating my principles. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Please vote.
John, just think we can drink and ride?
He wants one of those cars.
That moves to Thursday. Next item.
Authorize setting date and time for receiving resumes and scheduling selection of interim appointment. Commission District Number 12.
Moved by the chair, second by Commissioner Johnson. I see no one up on the board. Please vote.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Dominic, do you want to speak on
Yeah, I
that?
had one question, before we vote on this. I saw a letter from the media that we had to schedule the election date. Are we doing that?
Actually, Commissioner, we only got the notice from the Secretary of State today, but it was dated December 14th. And so their contention is that whenever they received Mr. Epperson's resignation, that that triggered the running of the 20 days that you all would have had to call the election, meaning that that would have had to been done today. Of course, notice was not, it would have had to been done in a special meeting because your work session, you can't take a vote. The earliest you could have done it was tomorrow. So what will happen is the Secretary of State will send a request to the governor's office tomorrow to call the election. They will call the election. The only available date is the primary for October 14th, so it will not be called in a manner that will incur additional expense to Caddo Parish. And then you all will vote on the replacement on January the 19th, which will be the 20 days.
So there's no way we can add it on there to call the special?
No, because it would not
Okay.
be, because today is a work session.
And it doesn't really matter, the governor will just call it? It's
No,
gonna call
it
for the
doesn't.
October date anyway, that's the earliest we can have it, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I don't know if anybody understands what I'm saying, I just had saw a letter from a young lady with the news media a while ago indicating that days was the deadline to call the election, and it's not going to be held until October, so.
Correct.
Anyway, hope I didn't confuse anybody, I just was thinking about that in the back of my mind, so.
That's everybody on the board. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Bowman.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Just point of information, the date for the appointment, again, is The 19th?
The way that this reads is that we are accepting all resumes that are interested in the position would go to Todd Hopkins with the clerk of the commission, and we will accept resumes until the 11th of this month. And then on the 11th, that will give Mr. Hopkins time to vet everybody to make sure that they fall within the legal guidelines, and then all of us will have their request to serve on the commission. And then on the 19th, we will vote. And of course, at the meeting on the 19th, they can say that they can say neither, or they can say I only want to serve for this interim, or I want to run full-time.
Right,
The
okay.
19th,
But the
Is that a meeting?
19th,
Is that a
our
regular meeting?
regular scheduled meeting, the 19th, we beat the 20-day
Right.
record.
By one
because-
day?
By one day. And so our regular scheduled meeting, we will
Correct.
vote on the issue, and we're going to invite everybody who put in their resume to speak at our work session a few days beforehand. Is there anything else, Commissioner Bowman?
No, thank you, Mr. President, I appreciate
Commissioner
that.
Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to point out that there have been some problems in the way we voted for certain boards in the past, the processes. Let me rephrase that. I think there's room for improving our process when we're voting for certain board members, and in this case, I've never gone through this process, but I'd like to make sure that our whoever our commission president is at the time touches base with the commission clerk and the commission legal counsel, make sure we have a good process for selecting this interim commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. I do recognize that a lot of times the first person on the agenda gets the votes, and even though everybody intended to vote on the last person on the agenda, and so I do recognize that. Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, the process basically states that the majority of the sitting commissioners, so it would take 6 of us to advance that person to the seat. So basically you get 1 vote. Well, now, the last time y'all voted for like 3 or 4 people.
Here we go.
Botched that up because it's supposed to be a number higher than what you actually went with.
Yeah, I just
That's why you had empty votes that didn't get taken, because you didn't have the number high enough so that you can have the majority of the people that was here. So that's why that happened.
I just want to make sure we've got a good process moving on.
The process work, I mean, we've done it numerous times.
we'll do it just like we did with Stormy,
Is
correct?
that everything, Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Dominic?
Well, we'll do it just like we did with Stormy. I mean,
Stormy.
I think everybody got to vote on a certain person, then we took the top 2. Yeah.
Yeah, what about the rounds?
Yeah, if you don't get the,
If you don't get the majority, what you do, because there's technically if there's 7 people, or 5 or 6 people applying, you take the top 2 and then they'll go into the final vote. Of course, we always let them come up and give them, because I know we have a person here that's interested, we'll give them time to speak and tell us who they are and why they want to be appointed.
That is everybody on the board. Please vote. That moves forward. Meeting
Move
is
to
adjourned.
adjourn.
What do you got a list there of some commissioners you want to read out right there? Okay.